Cheeseheads. Get on your feet. It's Curd and Long. Hosted by Sparky, Fifer, and Ryan Horvath.
Welcome in another edition of Curd and Long. Ryan Horvath off this week. He is off to do a wedding, or going to a wedding, I guess, for the week. I think he's working tonight, but is busy all day today, and then he's off the rest of the week. So he'll be back next week, filling in today on Curd and Long. First time he and I have ever done anything together concerning radio or otherwise. He is Mitch Thunder Nelles. You remember him from his days at ESPN Milwaukee with Steve the Homer True. He was over on AM 920, part of iHeart. So what's up, Thunder? How you doing?
I'm doing great, Sparky. How you doing?
Doing good, man. Hanging in there. I guess first things first, I want to kind of get your thoughts on what exactly you think right now of the Packers coming off the draft, coming off of free agency, getting ready for another round of OTAs coming up this week. And, you know, how confident are you in this Packers team as we sit here on Monday, or actually Tuesday, May 28th?
You know, I'm torn on this Packers team. I really want to get excited about this team. I was excited. I was way more into the team last year than I thought I'd be. After the whole Aaron Rodgers thing, and then after the Chiefs Niners Super Bowl, or whatever Super Bowl that was, that I felt like got robbed, Eagles. It was the Eagles Super Bowl. I just didn't like how that ended. I thought I was going to take a break from the NFL for a year. I was like, I remember talking to Tim Van Vorn about how I was done with the NFL and I was done with football, and it was like it just like seemed like too much big business and not enough for the fans. But Jordan Love got me back in, and I got back into it last year, and I got excited about it last year. And so the reason I'm really torn is because Jordan Love wasn't a rookie last year, so I don't know that a sophomore slump is appropriate. But I'm nervous that we're so excited and we're so into it, and they're so good on paper after finishing so strong last year, that they're going to have a little bit of that regression to the mean and struggle a little bit. So I'm trying to not get, I hear you guys on the podcast, and I hear local guys. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of excitement for the Packers right now, and I'm just trying to not go that far.
This is where I'm at on it. From the perspective of excitement, and what you said about rookie. That's an interesting, I think, talking point, because going into last year, first year as a starter, right, even though he'd been in the league for several years, kind of behind Aaron Rodgers, and made a couple other, played in a couple other games, including that god-awful start against Kansas City. That was really his first year as a starter. So, no, technically it wasn't his rookie year by definition of what the NFL is. But by definition of actually playing a whole season of NFL football, that kind of really was his rookie year, because he had not strung together any type of starts. He had not been in the position to play somebody twice. Sure. And that's the one thing that really excited me most. Like, the first time they saw the Lions, it wasn't pretty. The second time they saw the Lions, Jordan Love had them figured out and was like, we're good. Let's go. And that, to me, was the most exciting part about everything. Was the second time he got to see somebody, he was always, and the offense, significantly better the second time. So if anything, like you said, I don't really expect a regression. If anything, I expect them to get even better going forward, Mitch.
Yeah, I can't jump on that. I hear what you're saying, and I agree with the concept. Conceptually, I agree that they should get better. You're right. Every time he played a team a second time, except for maybe the Bears, because they destroyed them so thoroughly the first time as well. But every time he played, they got better, and certainly the second half of the year was so much better than the first half of the year. But I'm just worried that maybe they caught lightning in a bottle. Maybe the league thought they were who they were in the first half of the year, and so wasn't ready for them. I just think that teams are going to have them more on the radar. I think other teams are going to be more prepared for them. I like what Jordan Love brings. I liked what the coaching staff brought last year, but I'm worried that there's a little, and I'm still talking about like 500, 9-8, 10-7. Like, I'm not talking about a catastrophe by any means. I just don't think they're quite ready for 12-5 or 13-4. I mean, that's upper echelon, and I just don't think they're quite there yet.
See, for me, I guess maybe I'm different than some people. Like I love LaFleur. I've been a LaFleur fan, I guess, for quite a while. I know people call him LaFlower and all this other stuff, and that's fine. You can call him whatever you want. I just think he's really good. And it was pointed out, I don't remember who brought it up. I'm sure several people have brought it up of, well, he was using McCarthy's guys and McCarthy won with him. And what does that prove? Yeah, but McCarthy didn't have 3-13 in 3 seasons with Rodgers. And on top of all that first year, Rodgers and LaFleur weren't even really on the same page, and they still figured out a way to win a bunch of games. And then, and on top of it, Joe Barry's defense that you were dealing with kind of going forward. And then this is the biggest thing. Tell me again, what quarterback and what head coach plays with as much inexperience as they did last year on offense and does what they do? Not only do they win games, not only do they make the playoffs, they go into Dallas, a place where the Cowboys hadn't lost all year, and humiliate them there, then go to San Francisco, and that was a game to the very end when, Love made that Favre-like throw, fine. But again, first and second year wide receivers, rookie tight ends. The running back room was a complete mess because nobody could stay healthy until the very end of the year. I'm sorry. The job that LaFleur did and that Jordan Love did with what they had around him, and now to think, oh boy, a full offseason, now they know the offense, now it's not going to be teaching for the first half of the year. They hit the ground running how they ended last year. To me, I'm one of those emotional people, as you well know, Thunder, and I cannot wait for kickoff in Brazil. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. I cannot wait. And then you add Jacobs to the backfield on top of it. Come on, man. And then Lloyd, too? How are you not excited, Mitch Thunder Nelles? How are you not excited?
There's nothing I could say. I know. There's nothing I can say to disagree. All your points are salient. All your points are spot on. I think part of it, again, goes to that the rest of the league is going to be more prepared for them. I don't think the rest of the league was prepared for them this year. I don't think they were ready for them to be this good. I don't think they were ready for Jordan Love to be as good as he was. I agree. The wide receivers are going to be better. Jacobs in the backfield is going to make this team electric. They have all the pieces in place. Hopefully the defense is, and I think the defense absolutely will be improved. So everything's going to be better, but everything has to fall into place. And I just think like the way things work and the way the football gods play with your emotions sometimes. And Sparky, I know you got the emotion on your sleeve. The way the football gods play with you sometimes, I just think there's a little bit of that hesitancy. I want to see night one in Brazil too. I want to see what they do against the Eagles. I want to see if Jalen Hurts can come back to form and if the Eagles can get back to where they were 2 years ago. But I'm just, and maybe I'm protecting my feelings a little bit and lowering my expectations so that I get pleasantly surprised. But I'm just I'm a little slow to jump all in with both feet on how good this team can be.
Let me take you to another place. Let me see if I can help get you over to my side. Here's something else for you to consider. Nick Sirianni, possible fraud. It's realistic, right? I mean, he loses his offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator head coaching jobs. Shane Steichen, who is his OC, goes to Indy with Gardner Minshew and gets on a run with Indianapolis. That's crazy. And his defensive coordinator takes a bunch of guys that weren't expected to do much and actually had them believing and playing well at the end of the year, where everybody's excited to see what the Cardinals are this year. And his Eagles team regressed. So what does he do? Fires everybody that he had, brings in all new guys, and we're going to try it again. Now, I don't know if that was his call or if that was the front office's call, right? Roseman's call to tell him, hey, man, you either do this or I got to go somewhere else. Maybe that's what it was. Hi, Roseman. But that's what happened there. Buffalo, Josh Allen. Brian Dable's the guy. Brian Dable leaves, goes to the Giants. Josh Allen, look like the same Josh Allen as he was maybe a couple years ago. Maybe not making as smart decisions anymore. That's what makes this, to me, a big deal, right? It made a big deal for Aaron Rodgers to be with McCarthy and then LaFleur. Didn't have to go through 5 different, offensive coordinators who kept getting head coaching jobs. He had the same voice. Jordan Love has had the same voice since they drafted him in his ear, talking about what he wants to do, how he wants to do it, and so forth. Jordan Love has become a leader of this team as well, kind of going forward. The buy-in is already there. There is no change outside of Aaron Jones, there is no change to this offense whatsoever. Again, you can game plan for the Green Bay Packers. My counter would be Matt LaFleur had no idea how good Tucker Kraft was. No clue. He thought he was going to be a run blocking tight end, run out 4 or 5 yards, dump it off. That's what he was. His athleticism, I think, shocked LaFleur. And now you put him with Musgrave. Now you're running 2 tight end sets, catching guys that they have not seen anything of last year because they couldn't stay healthy together. You're going to start to see that. How they're going to use Jacobs, nobody knows. We haven't seen that yet. We'll have to figure that out. And if, huge if, Christian Watson can stay healthy for an entire season, oh my, how different this offense becomes yet again. They were winning without Christian Watson last year because he was hurt for the 5 millionth time, and they still won. Prior to that, they couldn't do anything without Watson with Aaron Rodgers. So, I can't find a negative. I understand your negative of, well, they'll game plan better against the Packers. And my argument to that is, maybe, but the Packers have so many weapons, good luck stopping them.
You go down the list, and there's nothing I can do to argue with you. You talk about the tight ends. You talk about the wide receivers. Maybe the O-line has a couple questions on it, has a couple young guys on it, and we'll see how that comes together. But you're right. There's nothing I can – and I like, where you're going with Philly. I do think Sirianni's a bit of a fraud. I think Buffalo's not as good as an example because I think Josh Allen really is that good. But I think the best example is going to be the Phoenix Suns. I'm going to switch sports and flip it up on you for a second. Devin Booker is now going to have his 6th coach in 9 years or whatever it is. There is no consistency there. It's a franchise that should be winning more than it has, and it's not because they can't settle on a voice and get things right. And we saw, you're absolutely right. We saw what LaFleur did with Aaron Rodgers. Now, they couldn't win in the playoffs. And was that more still on Aaron Rodgers or was that on LaFleur? They faltered in San Francisco this past year. And again, Love's not a rookie, but he's a first-year quarterback. Is this a situation where LaFleur is going to consistently fail in the playoffs? Or is he going to figure this out as Jordan Love progresses, as the tight ends and wide receivers and offensive line all get better? And so you're right. I mean, the expectation certainly is that they are going to make the playoffs. But when you make the playoffs, you're not playing you're not playing the Bears anymore. Right? You're only playing the teams. And I am excited for what they can do as a football team. I'm still hesitant to put them into the ultimate, I see that they're whatever they're ranked, 3rd or 4th or 5th in the NFC or 7th or 8th or 9th, all in the NFL. And I hate power rankings. I didn't grow up with power rankings. I don't understand power rankings in sports. You have rankings in college. There's no rankings in the pros. That doesn't make any sense to me. The Green Bay Packers are a really good football team. I'm not ready to crown them yet.
Okay, listen. Power rankings were established for talking heads on TV and for sports talk show hosts like us. That's what power rankings are there for people to debate and argue about where their team should be versus somebody else. That's why power rankings are there. Now, am I a huge power rankings guy? No, but for sports talk radio, it's fun talk. Now, if we're going to line up the NFC and figure out, okay, who is 3, who is 4? Because I think San Francisco is clearly 1 at this point until proven otherwise. San Francisco is 1. Then you could have your conversation about Philly or Detroit, probably 2, 3. And then I think it's the Packers and Cowboys after that at 4 and 5. But I don't see any way that the Packers aren't at the very worst, if case may be, in the top 5 of the NFC. Now, me personally, I would put them over Dallas at this point, and I'm not there on Dan Campbell and the Lions. So I might put them 3 as we sit here today behind the Niners and the Eagles. They could go to 2 if they beat the Eagles in week 1, Mitch Nelles. They could go to 2, me knocking on the doorsteps of the Niners until later in the year when they beat them too.
No doubt about it. They certainly can go that high. But they can also, I would have them ahead of Dallas right now too. They won in Dallas. Like the last time we saw these two teams play each other, they won in Dallas. They beat the Lions. They should have beaten the Niners. They didn't get a chance against Philly, but Philly was terrible. And I know the Buccaneers were in that conversation. Some people are putting the Falcons in that conversation. I don't care who else is in the conversation. Certainly the Green Bay Packers are in that top 5 conversation. But top 5 could go either way. Top 5 could go up to 1, 2, 3. Top 5 could drop down to 7, 8, or 9, depending on who steps up this year, We don't want to talk about injuries, but injuries happen in the NFL, and you don't want to get hit by the injury bug. But I think Green Bay's in that conversation. Green Bay, right now, if you're gonna make me, I would put them at 4 in the NFC. I might even throw them over Philly because we just said it. Sirianni's a fraud. If Jalen Hurts can get it back together, maybe they can be good again. But but that 3, that 4, that's great. Like that's a good place to be. That's where we want the Green Bay Packers to be. They're still super young. They're still growing. I think it's okay to be the 3rd or 4th best team in the NFC, but also finish 6th or 7th. Play in the playoffs, have a great season. But I don't, I for me to say that they're one of the top, I'd rather they just like figure everything out this year, really get things settled. And like, what I'm not supposed to do in podcasting or sports talk or anything like that, say like, this is a team for 25 and 26 and 27, but it is. They're built depending on how much they have to pay Jordan Love, because we all know how quarterback salaries ruin teams. But we know that this team is built to make a deep run into the future.
Mitch Nelles, you got to help me out here, buddy, because I feel like you're kind of contradicting yourself. If you're saying they're a top 3, top 4 team, you can't say, well, they may win 9 games. 8, 9 games. I'm not saying they're going to be horrible. Man, if they're the top 3 team in the NFC, buddy, they're going to win somewhere around 11, 12 games, bare minimum at this point. If they have 9 wins and they're the 3rd best team in the NFC, something went very, very wrong in the NFC this year. Like, horribly wrong, injury-wise or otherwise, if they're the 3 seed in the playoffs and they have 9 wins on the season.
So you're right, but besides the 49ers, I don't believe in anybody in the NFC, to be honest with you. I actually like the Lions, but I don't trust the Lions. I like Philly, but I don't trust Philly. I don't like Dallas, and I don't trust Dallas. So, I mean, the Vikings have been good in the past, but we don't think they're going to be very good this year. The Giants were good 2 years ago. They made the playoffs, but the Giants are terrible. I mean, you could go division by division. The NFC's terrible. I mean, the fact that the Buccaneers won a playoff game last year means the NFC is terrible. So last year, you're looking at the Niners, the Lions, and the Packers. Philly should have been there. It ended up being Tampa, but Philly should have been there. So there are 4 good teams. So yeah, you're right. Maybe the Packers win just because everybody else is terrible. So in terms of contradicting myself, you're not wrong. Could this team get to 12-5? Yes, but I don't think it's on their merits. I think it's on how bad the rest of the NFC is.
See, you know what makes Mitch Nelles a good sports talk host? He just gave you the reason why he's not going to be wrong if they go 12-5. He just gave himself an out and said, hey, if they go 12-5, that means everybody sucks. That doesn't mean I'm wrong. That just means they're not very good. That's sneaky good stuff right there. You got to be paying attention closely to figure out how he can play both sides and still be right no matter which way this goes. All right, Mitch Nelles. So tell me this. Brian Gutekunst has been under fire on and off in the Packer fan base for quite some time. So when we talk about how good he is, I think if you look at the last couple of years' draft classes, he's been phenomenal. Now, if you look at what he did originally when he took over, Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, Amos, I think those guys, for the most part, turned out okay. Amos played throughout his contract. Preston Smith is still here. Zadarius Smith had a falling out with the Packers, whatever, but when he was playing, he was still pretty good. I thought those free agent signings were good. He does 2 more big free agent signings here to help out this Packers team. I mean, for me, look at the job that Goody's done, and we can talk about the Aaron Rodgers fiasco. That obviously plays into it. But if you take the Rodgers thing out, push that aside, and just say, okay, draft picks, free agency, so forth, I don't know, man. He's somewhere between a B and an A would be my guess. B+, somewhere in that area.
Oh, man. So I'm on record as like, I respect the man, but I did not like Ted Thompson, the GM, at all. I mean, I remember I was on the air at the time and I had this segment called Thunder Watch where guys were on Thunder Watch. And it was either UWM Athletics or Ted Thompson. We're always on Thunder Watch. I thought Ted Thompson literally was derelict in his duties. There was no due diligence. And then Goody comes in and signs free agents. And it worked. It worked with Preston and Zadarius and even with Amos. It worked. But then he kind of like because he had signed those guys, he took a year or two off, it feels like. There's no denying the talent he's brought in the last couple of years. But I'm looking, when people ask me, oh, look at the draft. How did the Packers draft? I say, ask me about the draft from 3 years ago. Well, I look at the 21 draft and I see Eric Stokes, Josh Myers, Amari Rogers, Royce Newman, Tadarius Slayton, Shamar Jean Charles, Cole Van Lannon, and Isaiah McDuffie. And I'm like, that's not a great draft. That's not an A or a B draft. Now, you look at last year's draft, you look at the draft from 2 years ago, and all of a sudden you got all these guys who are contributing, especially a wide receiver. When we talked about for years that they would never go get a wide receiver for Aaron Rodgers, and if they would just go get him a receiver, this could be something special. And it goes all the way back to Randy Moss, of course, and Tony Gonzalez, and Sparky. You and I remember all those days and those conversations. Goody seems to have turned a corner. His last year or two is definitely between a B and an A. Overall, I think he's still probably at a B minus for me, but the grade has improved because he was at a C minus for a while. And so I think I don't let, a B minus doesn't mean I love him, but I think he's maturing into being a competent NFL general manager and trending in the right direction, where that competent word might end up being above competent. Might be, I don't know that he'll ever be a star GM, but I do think that he's built. Again, we talked about how this team is built for the future. This team is built to compete. As long as they can manage Jordan Love's contract with the rest of the team, this team is built to compete for the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Let's talk a little bit about that draft class you just brought up, because I agree with you. You hear the names, you're like, ugh, 3 years ago, 21. Oh my God, that's awful. But Stokes has been hurt. Okay. Now that's not Goody's responsibility, regardless. If he's hurt and he doesn't play well, that's a bust no matter which way you go about it. Fine. But as of right now, he's still a starting cornerback for this team, opposite of Jair Alexander. So that's one starter. Myers, as of right now, is still the starting center on this football team. That's 2 starters. And we don't know about McDuffie. We know he played under half when he was at Boston College, so he's going to get run in this defense. So worst case, that's 2 starters and a pretty pivotal role player that's going to get quite a few snaps on this defense. I think most GMs would take that in a draft class if they could get it, Mitch Nelles.
I think it's borderline. I think it's right. You want one more. You want one more, and then I think most GMs would say, that's what I want. I think you want one more guy. And you look at 2022. You got Quay Walker.
I got one guy, TJ Slaton.
I want one more guy from that class.
Going to play on the line.
Okay. All right. If he ends up being a full-time, so let's go to 22. Quay Walker, who plays every down, and I know there's a lot of mixed feelings about Quay Walker, but plays every down, no doubt about it. Devontae Wyatt, I think there's still questions. Christian Watson, we all agree has the talent. That's not a Goody issue. Christian Watson is an injury, whether it's the training staff or it's Christian himself or whatever it is, but Christian Watson was a hit, no doubt about it. Sean Ryan, Romeo Dobbs and Zach Tom, 2 4th-rounders in that. So now you start talking about the home runs. Now you start talking about, that's what I said. I want more. That's 4 guys, maybe 5, and Ngabare's in that class. There's good guys who are, Samari Torre was in that, there's Rasheed Walker's in that. There's names in that are contributing, not just guys who are stiffs, who are bums, who they drafted and are on the roster, but they're not good. These guys are decent. These guys are contributors. And if this is where Goody's trending, again, to what I said originally, if this is where Goody's trending as a drafter, this team is set up for success.
Let's talk about Mark Murphy, the owner of this football, well, not owner, the president of this football team, and he'll eventually be phased out because of the retirement age and so forth. And that's fine. But a lot of people like having fun at his expense with a meme of him sliding down the hill and, he's all business and he doesn't care about us and yada, yada, yada. Listen, at the end of the day, Bob Harlan is, for me, on the Packer Mount Rushmore forever. Having said that, Murphy has done phenomenal things around Lambeau Field, man. If y'all don't appreciate Titletown and everything else that's been built up around there, you're nuts, because he's done great things. And then you add on more seating under his watch as well at Lambeau Field to increase the capacity size. If you like Jordan Love and if you like Matt LaFleur, well, that's him. That wasn't Goody. That was Murphy. He was the one that sat in on all those interviews. Goody sat in the corner and nodded his head and asked a question or two. But that was Mark Murphy. He was making that decision. And when that LaFleur interview was done, he knew that's who he wanted. Went home, slept on it, got him the next day, said, yep, that's who we're hiring. We're going with Matt LaFleur. And then Goody and LaFleur and Murphy and whoever else made the decision to try and make that move for Jordan Love at the end of the day. LaFleur, who acts all innocent in that whole thing, go back and watch the video. That was COVID. Right? So he was at home or wherever he was giddy like a schoolgirl on video when they got Jordan Love. And he acts like, well, yeah, Aaron, it wasn't my part. It was all that, man. Stop. You were just as excited as everybody else was when you got Jordan Love. But that was all Mark Murphy, right? Murphy made the decision to go with Goody. Murphy made the decision to go with LaFleur. Murphy was fine with them drafting Jordan Love at that spot. Mark Murphy should get a ton of credit, not only for the business side of things, but also how they transition on the football side of things without really having any blips whatsoever.
If you told me that Mark Murphy was the vice president of business operations for our Green Bay Packers, I would tell you he's done a phenomenal job as your vice president of business operations. Titletown, all the stock, selling meaningless pieces of paper to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people around the state and around the world. All that is fantastic. And you're right. He brought in Goody. He brought in LaFleur. However, he got the job in 2007. And Aaron Rodgers was just, that was still Brett Favre. And then Aaron Rodgers got the job. So he was the CEO of the team through Aaron Rodgers' entire career as a starter with the Green Bay Packers. And they won one Super Bowl. And you can talk about Titletown as long as you want. And you can talk about all the great things. And you can talk about the positive trajectory that this team has now. But the fact that you won and only made one Super Bowl while Aaron Rodgers was your quarterback is an F. That is an F from 2007 until 22 or whatever it was. Maybe it's a D. Maybe it's a D. It's not an F. You won a championship. You didn't win no championships. You're not Herb Cole. Herb Cole gets an A for keeping the team in Milwaukee, but he gets an F as the owner of the Milwaukee Bucks. Mark Murphy might not get an F, but he gets a D for 14 years of being the CEO of the football team. He might get an A on the business side, but he gets a D on the field. And so, yes, this might all switch around as we see what happens in the future with Love, LaFleur, and Goody. But I'm never going to be on Mark Murphy's side. I'm never going to be on his team. He had too many chances and gave us too much heartbreak that it's too little, too late at this point.
So if he gets a D, what exactly is your grading system for Bob Harlan then? Because now I'm really intrigued because they won only one Super Bowl with Bob Harlan and they got to a second, but they lost it. So he has as many championship rings as Murphy does.
Yeah, but I'm not sure. All right. So first of all, Bob Harlan is a way nicer guy than Murphy.
No,
is one of us. Right. And so he gets a little bit of a pass.
Nicer? Then you can't do that. Stop. No. This is not a nice poll. I like him better. He was nicer to me.
He answered his own phone. He answered his own phone.
Oh, stop.
All right. I think Harlan was less in charge of took less responsibility for the on the field. I think he let his football people make football decisions. I don't think Murphy let his football people. Well, first of all, he kept Ted Thompson way too long. So he let Ted Thompson make decisions. But again, we've already discussed Ted Thompson did not do his job the last 4 years he was here. He did not do his job. And Mark Murphy let him not do his job. And I don't think Bob Harlan would have had a GM in place not doing his job.
I don't disagree with you on the Ted Thompson thing. You know, health-wise wasn't the best. I don't know why Murphy didn't make a move sooner. I agree with you on that for certain. I also agree with you, Mitch Nelles, that Bob Harlan was far more hands-off than Mark Murphy was. Ron Wolf was the one that was in charge of doing his own thing. Now, Harlan was also the one that allowed Mike Sherman to be GM and head coach, was a complete fiasco. And then let him bring in Mark Hatley from the Bears. What? To come in and help him run the football side of things. That also wasn't the most smartest move in the whole wide world either. But to his credit, he finally fixed it and brought in Ted Thompson to try and go in, obviously, the right direction, and then eventually passed it off to Mark Murphy. And Harlan had say, I'm sure, and who it was being passed off to. So obviously he did a smart thing, giving it to Murphy, just for, like you said, even just the business side. But they won another Super Bowl with Murphy. So between the two of them, they've got 2 Super Bowl rings. Now, I agree with you. You should have more than 2 Super Bowl rings when you have, 30 years of Hall of Fame quarterback play. There should be more than 2 championships in Green Bay to represent those 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks. I agree. But see, again, like I said, Bob Harlan is on, the Mount Rushmore of Packers or whatever you want to call it for me. I just think sometimes Murphy gets a bum rap. And I've been mad at Murphy too over the course of time. The whole McCarthy thing, how that all ended and went down or whatever. But for the most part, I think Murphy has done a good job. Now, if Jordan Love goes and wins a Super Bowl, it may not be on Murphy's watch. Murphy may be retired by that point. It may be on Ed Policy's watch because I'm pretty sure he's the next president.
Right.
Jordan Love, and that would be something. But in the back of everybody's mind, you're going to think of Mark Murphy if Jordan Love wins this thing, even though it may be on Ed Policy's watch, Mitch.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree with that. If Jordan Love does win a Super Bowl with the Green Bay Packers, whether Murphy is still the CEO or not, it's a Murphy decision. And I think that's fair. I think Murphy deserves that credit at that point. To this point, we're not there. And I spent too many years too heartbroken to give Mark Murphy more. I can't give him love. I can't give him love. I can give him love for what he did on the business side, and that's great. But I don't really care about the business side. I care about it a little bit, but I care about how my team does on the field. And the fact, and you know this, Sparky, I was born and raised in Boston. I moved to Milwaukee when I was 14, and I still hold loyalties to all the New England and Boston teams and all the Milwaukee and Wisconsin teams. And the fact that I never, and this is totally selfish, I get it. The fact that I never got to see an Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady Super Bowl is total BS to me. It's just total garbage, and I will I'll never get that back. I'll never feel good about that, and I will feel cheated out of that. And Mark Murphy cheated me out of that.
There we go. He is Mitch Nelles. Follow him on Twitter at ThunderMKE, at ThunderMKE. Always throwing out there great local sports takes still in their area as well. Mitch, thanks so much for coming on. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Have a